can't tell you how excited and honored I am, honestly, to share the stage with so many great speakers. And there's been so much fantastic information that's been shared to this point. And it's information and knowledge and wisdom, not just for folks that we are caring for naturally, but also for the caregivers themselves. And that can't be overstated, because as has been eloquently said earlier, it's about caring for ourselves, taking care of our health, doing all we can so that we can, truly be there for others, when they need us. And I think about what I would like to share today. It reminds me of a story of one of my favorite movies. I know our listeners everybody has a favorite movie that they like to watch over and over again, or that has a message that, really resonates with them. Well, one of those movies for me is The Shawshank Redemption. There's a quote from that movie that I think really embodies what I want to share with everybody today. And I know most of our listeners have seen that movie. It when it was released, it wasn't, a huge hit, but it has since become a beloved movie for so many because of the messages and the story. So there's a moment in the middle of the movie where Andy and Red are sitting on the ground, leaning up against the wall, and they're talking about someday getting out of prison. And Andy shares with Red his dream for the future of spending the rest of his days in a city on the coast of Mexico, a place he describes as warm with no memory. Does anybody out there remember the name of the city? Soantaneo. So as Andy shares this dream with Red, the music is pensive and Andy's eyes are sparkling. He's got this sanguine, almost giddy smile on his face, describing to Red this future he's envisioning, hoping for, dreaming of. Which is ridiculous if you think about it. They're both imprisoned with very little chance of ever getting out. So exasperated, Red finally says to Andy, I think you should stop doing this to yourself. These are shitty pipe dreams. Mexico's way down there and we're in here. And that's the way it is. And Andy's just sitting there, gritting his teeth, and you can see this resolve, which is oozing out of him. Yeah, right, he says. It's down there, and I'm in here. It's just the way it is. I guess it comes down to a simple choice, really. Get busy living or get busy dying. And I think that quote really frames what I think we've all talked about to this point today, which is this idea of how do we find a way to get up every day and get busy living rather than to die a slow, gradual death before our actual demise, which I think is more common now than ever. In my book, Age Well and Feel Great, I wrote that I believe most of us, or many of us, are dying those slow deaths before our actual demise. Sometimes it's cognitive. We all know those that are suffering with some form of dementia. Sometimes it's functional. We all know folks that lose their ability to move freely and participate in life and enjoy the ability to get out there and visit with friends and travel and do the things that we love. And sometimes that death before our demise is emotional, and that comes from loneliness and isolation. And when we're suffering this early death before our demise, it sucks the joy out of life. We're no longer able to participate and do the things that we love with the people that we want to do them with. And as I sit here today, right now, I can tell you, Miss Sherelle mentioned how I lost my dad. He passed 23 years ago from an awful, insidious brain cancer, a glioblastoma, at the too young age of 65. And here I am. I'm about to turn 64 this week, and I've been struggling with this head cold all week, and I'm feeling a lot older than my years. But the reality is, this was the same. I'm the same age that my dad was diagnosed with this brain cancer, and he unfortunately aged at a very fast rate of speed for a lot of different reasons. And I think he did the best that he could with what he knew at the time. And certainly when we look at earlier generations, the onset of processed convenience foods and all kinds of changes that have happened over the last 40 to 50 years that have dramatically changed how we live our lives, and not all of it in a very good way. It might be more convenient, but a lot of less than beneficial changes have occurred. So I lost my dad at a very young age. And on the flip side of the coin, my mom is 93. She turned 93 in August. And I know when I mention my mom to so many folks and the fact that she's still alive today at 93, that first reaction is, wow, that's amazing. That's great. Anyone that lives till 93, that's got to be wonderful. But the truth is that these years have not been easy years for my mom. And I would argue that, I'll just simply share that I had a conversation with my mom last night. And she sadly mentioned to me, because she's now living in a convalescent home. We're unable to care for her at home any longer. She's lost her ability to be mobile. She's now bedridden 24/7 and in a significant amount of pain. And so taking, narcotics on a 24/7 basis. And she shared with me something that was so sad. She said, they're talking about giving me drugs now because they say I need to control my anger. And she said, I am angry. I don't want to be living here. I don't want my life to end this way. And this is the challenge that we all face as caregivers, as people that we care for. We can't always determine how we want, how the end of our life is going to end. We have a vision, as Andy did in the movie. He saw himself living the rest of his days in the city on the coast of Mexico. But the reality is we all have a vision for our future, and it doesn't always play out the way that we hope. And I don't think there's a place that I could go to more than this, a circle of amazing and wonderful people here with this caregiver conference, because everybody can so relate to this idea that very often the way our life actually flows out is very different than the way that we envisioned it. So as Cheryl mentioned, when I was 25, I saw a lot of ill health around me. I saw people suffering, and I wondered why some struggle with chronic disease, some struggle with dysfunction, some are in pain and others aren't. And I know there's a lot of mystery around why certain people get sick and others don't. But there's a lot that we do know. There's a lot that is no longer a mystery. So when I was 25, I made this conscious decision. I had this vision for myself of squaring the curve, which is to say, to live my entire life in good health, free of disease and dysfunction. And then one day, maybe at the age of 110, go to sleep and not wake up the next day. After having done something fun that day with people that I love and that I wanted to be with. And I know there's so many listening right now that are thinking, how that sounds great, but that's a pipe dream. That doesn't happen, most of the time. And I would agree it doesn't happen most of the time, but I believe that it is possible, to the extent that I believe we can delay the onset of chronic disease. And really, at the end of the day, this is what we all need to hope for. This is the vision that we all need to have. If we can delay the onset of disease, we can reduce the period of suffering. we can reduce the period of extended, long-lasting caregiving that just sucks the life and the energy out of all of us. Because it isn't the weeks or the months, but it is the years that add up, where we can, sadly become resentful and angry, and our resources, financial and emotional and physical, are drained. And we're left not only with someone that we love, that we want to care for, who becomes a shadow of themselves, but we as caregivers become a shadow of ourselves. So I became passionate through all of these years about learning everything that I possibly could about how I could extend my health span, focusing on the quality of the years, not so much the length of my life, but the quality of those years, so that I could reduce and stave off the onset of disease and live the majority of my life in good health. And I've shared that in my book, Age Well and Feel Great. And I now coach aging and aspiring adults who want to take back control of their health and live stronger in their second half. Because to me, my friends, without good health, nothing else matters nearly as much. And I'm seeing this now with my mom. All of her financial resources are gone, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a day to pay for caregiving. Of course, all of us in the family drained physically and emotionally. We focus our entire lives to earn and save and prepare for our retirement, and focus on those financial resources, only to see, us have to turn around and give up those financial resources to try to achieve better health. So what can we do to give ourselves the best chance to live stronger in our second half, to extend our health span? We know the latest science shows us that 80% of our health outcome is because of our lifestyle. Our genetics play a role. Certainly, our DNA plays a role. Our family history plays a role. But we even know now about a field of science called epigenetics, which basically is a field of study that says our lifestyle, our internal and our external environment impact how our DNA and our genes are manifest, how they actually express themselves. So we know that it's, at the end of our day, it's our lifestyle. It's how we choose to live. It's the choices we make. It's the self-care that so many have talked about. It's the exercise we get or don't get. It's the food we eat. It's the stress we manage. It's the sleep we get or don't get. It's our dental health and our all kinds of other aspects of our lifestyle that impact the level of chronic inflammation in our body and the health of our gut microbiome and so many other factors. So I want to share 5 simple tips to help anyone who's interested to begin to turn their lifestyle around and start to develop some newer, better habits and start to really embrace self-care. And certainly, I want to give a huge shout out to Dr. Dietrich Gorman, who spoke right before me. The idea of using our breath and breathing to really reinforce recovery and rejuvenation and get out of that sympathetic nervous system fight or flight and come into more of a parasympathetic nervous system activity is so important. I know myself, I try to make sure that I sit each night and do some deep breathing techniques and really reinforce that idea of getting out of that anxious, adrenaline-driven sympathetic nervous system activity. All right, so here are 5 tips that I want to leave everybody with today. First, I want to suggest that we all remember how important our circadian rhythm is. And what I mean by that is we live in a world where there's a lot of artificial light. We're on our smartphones, we're on our computers till all hours of the night. This really disturbs our body's ability to know what time of day it is. And that disturbance in our circadian rhythm can really mess with our health in big ways. So here's my suggestion. First thing in the morning, when you get up, have a tall glass of water. Of course, visit the bathroom, do your thing, then get outside. Get outdoors, get some sunlight in your eyes. Start your day with natural light. And then on the flip side, I have a rule that I follow. I call it my 3-2-1 rule. 3 hours before bedtime, I stop eating. No more eating within 3 hours of bedtime for many reasons. Normalizing blood glucose, enhancing a growth hormone release, and allowing my digestive system to calm down. 2 hours before bedtime, I stop drinking. And then most importantly, as it relates to our circadian rhythm, 1 hour before bedtime, I make sure no artificial light. I darken the house a little bit as much as possible. Get off the smartphones, get off the computers, get away from any artificial white light as much as is possible, which I know is difficult for caregivers. You know, if we're in, certainly, if we're convalescing or we're in homes where there's constant artificial light, this is one of the real challenges that we face. But that, I think, is an important first step. All right. Tip number 2. For today, I would suggest let's not snack. And we know that the science shows us that if we eat less frequently, we're going to be healthier. We can normalize insulin. We can normalize nutrient sensing proteins in our body that boost insulin, which certainly has a negative impact on our health. So I would ask everybody to just consider this. Focus on a shorter eating window during the course of your day and limit or eliminate any snacking. Tip number 3, and this might be the most important because I know we've talked about how stressful caregiving is and how we need to do all we can to reduce the stress of caregiving. Well, one of the best stress reducers is exercise. Unequivocally, when we move our body, when we raise our heart rate, when we work up a little bit of a sweat, it's a tremendous stress reliever and stress reducer. So I would ask everybody for today, get 5 minutes of continuous movement in your day. Start there. It's so important to start small, by the way. If you haven't exercised regularly, if you're not routinely going out and doing something physical, if you spend most of your day in a chair or by someone's bedside, then start small. Don't bite off too much. Don't bite off more than you can chew at any one time. Start small. So 5 minutes of continuous activity could be walking, could be dancing, whatever it is, but try to move continuously for 5 minutes. Start there. Movement is life, my friends. Movement is life. When we stop moving, life comes to an end. So we need exercise. Exercise is so important for us, and we're not wired for it as a species. It is a struggle, but it's so important because when we move, we're basically giving our body the physical stress that it craves and that it needs to be healthy. All right, now next, I mentioned earlier to eliminate or at least reduce snacking. Unequivocally, I think perhaps the biggest single reason for our ill health in the society in which we live, here in the good old USA, is the amount of processed, industrialized food in our diet. If someone were to ask me, Al, what's one bit of advice that you could give to someone that would help them improve their health immediately, and that they would continue to feel the benefits of? I would say eat real food. I would say replace one kind of processed, packaged, industrialized food that we get from the middle of the grocery store. Replace one of those foods with something that is a real food that God made, that comes from the ground, or that comes from another animal source. When we look at food labels, we know that real food doesn't have a label, or it has a very short label. When we're looking at something like red meat, that's what we see. Red meat, that's it. When we look at processed, industrialized food, we see a long list of ingredients, all kinds of additives and preservatives, all kinds of processed sugars, all kinds of things that are added to the food to make it more addictive, and ultimately much more damaging for our health. So my friends, just think real food. Just replace one processed food that you're eating right now with something that is real. And certainly as we age, we need more protein. So we want to focus on protein as well. Look for good sources of protein. As we age, our bodies don't absorb protein as efficiently. It's not as bioavailable to us. So certainly your preferred source of dairy proteins, if you like to use a protein powder, whey is a great source. If you prefer vegetable sourced protein powder, pea can work well. The bottom line is, and certainly animal sourced foods are fantastic sources of protein. I consider myself a plant-based meat eater. I believe humans are omnivores. I don't believe there's a bad food. I just believe there are bad habits. I think a large variety of foods is the way that we want to go. But the key thing to remember is processed food is insidious. It's dangerous. A lot of it is poisonous. It doesn't have a great impact on us in the moment, but over time, it really has a tremendous detrimental effect on our health by raising insulin levels, which is a master hormone in our body, elevates our blood glucose level, increases the chances of us becoming overweight or even obese. And so I would say it really does come down to eating real food and eliminating processed food. And then I would finish with this, just as Dr. Gorman mentioned, self-care. And even from the very first, the wonderful couple who launched our conference today, they started off so eloquently in speaking about self-care and the idea that if we can't be the best versions of ourselves, if we're not healthy, if we're in pain, if we're struggling with a chronic disease, if we're taking multitudes of prescription medications that have an endless list of side effects, then we can't be there for the people that need us to be there for them. It all starts with us, with our health. We need periods of rest and relaxation, as Cheryl has said numerous times this morning and yesterday. You can't do it all. You cannot do it all. You've got to be willing to ask for help. But it really does start with loving yourself. And to me, self-discipline is the greatest form of self-love. So be more disciplined, but take time for yourself. Take time to step away and relax. Take time to exercise. Take a little bit of extra time to shop for healthier foods. Make that one replacement away from something processed to something that is real. And then just repeat that every day. Tiny little changes, repeated consistently, because it's all about consistently. That's the secret sauce that everybody's looking for. Not massive changes, but consistent habit changes can reform us and reform our health. So there you go. My name again is Al Lyman. You can find me at theallyman.com. I've also got half a dozen exercise programs for anyone and everyone at my website, pursuitathleticperformance.com. You can find my book, Age Well and Feel Great, The Proven Path to Solving the Aging Puzzle, on Amazon or on my website, theallyman.com. Of course, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, on Twitter as Coach Al. I love to hear your success stories. And of course, I'm passionate about helping all of you to become the best versions of yourself. Because remember, my friends, without good health, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters nearly as much, no matter how much money we have, how many friends, loved ones, family, social interactions, all of those things. They're so important to us, but the life is drained from them when we're suffering and in pain. It all starts with good health with each of us.